On June 11, 2025, a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (IC) raid at Glen Valley Foods in Omaha, Nebraska, detained approximately 80 undocumented immigrants, labeled by critics as illegal aliens, unveiling a deeply interconnected network of city officials, nonprofit organizations, consular offices, and government agencies allegedly engaged in supporting illegal immigration. The subsequent press conference, led by Mayor John Ewing Jr., intended to clarify municipal roles, but instead exposed a web of collusion that critics argue diverts public and private resources from American citizens, potentially facilitating federal crimes such as harboring, fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. This network, involving key figures like Police Chief Todd Schmaderer, Douglas County Commissioner Roger Garcia, City Council Member Danny Begley, Human Rights and Relations Department Director Kaylin Daly DeGillis, and Coordinator Jennifer Rodriguez, alongside organizations like the Center for Immigrant and Refugee Advancement, CIRA, Nebraska Immigration Legal Assistance Hotline, NILA, Heartland Workers Center, HWC, and Nebraska Immigration Services, NAS, is accused of transforming Omaha's demographics, voting patterns, and economic stability. This article examines the city, county, state, and federal agencies responsible for investigating and prosecuting these alleged crimes, outlines punitive measures, and details actionable steps for Omaha citizens to report violations, seek recourse when local officials are implicated, and protect their communities from resource diversion. Supplemental sections, including a flow chart and detailed resources, provide further guidance for citizen action and understanding the legal framework. Investigating and prosecuting alleged crimes. The alleged crimes within Omaha's Immigrant Support Network, ranging from immigration violations to financial misconduct, fall under the jurisdiction of multiple government agencies, each with distinct roles in investigation, arrest, prosecution, and punishment. At the federal level, IC, part of the Department of Homeland Security, leads investigations into immigration-related crimes, such as illegal entry, unlawful presence, false document use, and harboring. The Glen Valley Foods raid, executed by ICE's Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, and Enforcement and Removal Operations, ERO, targeted undocumented workers and employers for violations of the Immigration Reform and Control Act, IRCA. HSI, supported by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, Internal Revenue Service, Criminal Investigation, IRSCI, and U.S. Marshal Service, investigates complex cases involving identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy. For instance, the 80 detainees are suspected of using fraudulent social security numbers, a felony carrying up to 7 years in prison, while Glen Valley faces potential fines of $240,000 for hiring violations. The Department of Justice, DOJ, through the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Nebraska, prosecutes these cases, pursuing charges like illegal reentry, document fraud, and in one reported case from the raid, assault on federal officers by a Honduran immigrant. Financial crimes such as wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and federal fund misallocation are investigated by the IRSCI for tax-related offenses and the FBI for fraud and laundering schemes. Nonprofits like CIRA, HWC, and One World Community Health Centers, suspected of misallocating federal grants or engaging in wire fraud, fall under FBI and IRSCI scrutiny. The DOJ's fraud section prosecutes these offenses with penalties including up to 20 years for wire fraud and 7 years for misallocation. Consular offices from Mexico, El Salvador, and Guatemala, potentially violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act by influencing local policies, are investigated by the DOJ's National Security Division, facing fines and up to 5 years imprisonment. At the state level, the Nebraska State Patrol collaborates with federal agencies, assisting with fraud investigations through the Department of Motor Vehicles Fraud Unit, as seen in the Glen Valley Raids coordination. The Nebraska Attorney General's Office may prosecute state-level financial crimes, such as theft involving state funds, if nonprofits or officials misuse contracts from the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. However, state jurisdiction over immigration crimes is limited deferring to federal authorities. Douglas County Sheriff's Office supports federal efforts through public safety measures and could investigate local financial misconduct if county funds are misused, as suspected with Garcia's contracts to nonprofits. The Douglas County Attorney's Office prosecutes state-level offenses, but refers immigration cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The Omaha Police Department, under Schmader, may probe local fraud or theft if city funds, like those allocated to the Human Rights and Relations Department, are misused, but its limited role in immigration enforcement defers to IC. Punitive measures depend on the offense. Immigration violations by undocumented immigrants result in deportation, fines, or imprisonment with a legal entry carrying up to 6 months, document fraud 7 years, and reentry after deportation up to 20 years for felons. Employers face fines of $3,000 per worker and 6 months imprisonment. Harboring, suspected of nonprofits and officials, incurs up to 7 years per alien. Financial crimes like wire fraud and tax evasion carry penalties of 7 to 20 years, while conspiracy and obstruction of justice face up to 5 years. Treason, though rare, could apply to actions undermining U.S. sovereignty, carrying life imprisonment. Citizen recourse and reporting mechanisms. Omaha citizens have multiple avenues to report suspected crimes and seek recourse, particularly when local officials like Ewing, Schmader, Garcia, Begley, DeGilles, and Rodriguez are implicated. The IC tip line at 866-347-2423 or online tip form allows anonymous reporting of immigration violations, such as harboring by SIRA or HWC. The FBI's Omaha field office at 402-493-8688 or tips. FBI.gov accepts tips on financial crimes like wire fraud or tax evasion by nonprofits. The IRS CI hotline at 800-829-1040 handles tax fraud reports relevant for organizations misreporting grant usage. The DOJ's fraud section at 202-514-2000 investigates federal fund misallocation by city or county officials. Citizens can gather evidence through Nebraska's open records law, requesting city contracts from the Omaha City Clerk at 402-444-5555 to expose fund allocations to SIRA or HW. Community groups can monitor nonprofit activities, documenting events like the Nebraska Immigrant and Workforce Summit for evidence of collusion. Engaging local media, such as the Omaha World Herald or KTV, amplifies concerns, as seen in raid coverage, pressuring authorities for action. When local officials are suspected of collusion, citizens can escalate reports to federal agencies. The DOJ's Public Integrity section at 202-514-1412 investigates official misconduct, such as Ewing or Garcia's alleged fund misallocation. The Department of Homeland Security's Office of Inspector General, OIG at 800-323-8603 probes federal grant misuse by nonprofits. If local prosecutors like the Douglas County Attorney fail to act, citizens can petition the Nebraska Attorney General at 402-471-2682 or the U.S. Attorney's Office for Nebraska at 402-661-3700. To protect communities from resource diversion, citizens can form coalitions to monitor nonprofit funding, like One World's $20 million budget, and file complaints with the Omaha City Council at 402-444-5520, demanding budget audits. Freedom of Information Act requests to the Department of Homeland Security at FOIA at HQ. DHS.gov can uncover grant details. Contacting Congressman Don Bacon at 402-379-1661 or Governor Jim Pillen at 402-471-2244 pushes for federal and state oversight. Peaceful protests, avoiding incidents like the 4 arrests at Glen Valley for assaulting officers, raise awareness without undermining credibility. Addressing community invasion and resource diversion. Omaha citizens face a perceived invasion by undocumented immigrants, with city resources like the $1.2 million Human Rights and Relations Department budget allegedly prioritizing non-citizens. Critics argue this network diverts funds from infrastructure, schools, and public safety, with over $600 million in public budgets and $50 million in nonprofit budgets supporting illegals. Citizens can lobby state legislators like Senator Margot Juarez at 402-471-2727 for stricter oversight of city and county contracts. Joining national groups like Numbers USA amplifies advocacy for immigration enforcement. If local officials collude with criminal organizations, citizens can bypass them by reporting to the DOJ's Civil Rights Division at 202-514-4609 for abuses of power, or the Federal Election Commission at 800-424-9530 for illegal electoral influence by nonprofits like HWC. Conclusion: the ICE raid at Glen Valley Foods and the ensuing press conference have exposed a collusive network in Omaha, allegedly committing federal crimes to support undocumented immigrants, diverting vast resources from citizens. Federal agencies like ICE, FBI, IRS, CI, and DOJ, alongside state and local entities, are tasked with investigating and prosecuting these offenses, with penalties ranging from fines to decades in prison. Omaha citizens can report crimes, gather evidence, and organize to demand accountability, escalating to federal authorities when local officials are implicated. This network's efficiency, lacking organized opposition, underscores the urgency for Nebraskans to act to protect their communities. Supplemental sections available at the Nebraska Journal Herald, including a flow chart and detailed resources, provide actionable guidance for citizens seeking justice.